So, I love food, and you know that I love sharing photos of my cooking and my food with you, the things that I like to eat. And I've recently shared photographs of food that I've enjoyed this summer. And I love preparing lunch. Lunch is probably my favorite meal of the day. And I love having lunch with my friends, particularly in the past. I don't go out to lunch anymore. Since COVID, I kind of stick to making my own food. I buy the ingredients from a butcher or the market or the supermarket, and I come home and I take pride in preparing my own meal. And I love having people prepare food for me, but I tend to stick to people that I know, like my mum. She prepared this delicious shrimp salad the other day. Now, I'm not a big fan of my mum's cooking. I prefer my cooking to my mum's, but she prepared this delicious shrimp, avocado, lettuce, cucumber salad the other day, and she made it with this seafood sauce. There's a plane going over, so I hope you don't hear that. It was so delicious. But after what I've heard, what's happened in Australia with this woman preparing a lunch for her in-laws, and what happened, the lunch that was prepared contained mushrooms. I've never been a fan of mushrooms, and I'm never going to eat mushrooms ever again. The only mushrooms I've ever used in my own cooking is button mushrooms, and the reason why I use them is because they have no flavor whatsoever. So I kind of just use them as a garnish, and that was for a French dish. The mushrooms that I do like are shiitake mushrooms, which are Asian mushrooms. This basically is, I want to educate people on mushrooms and educate people to think twice when you go to somebody's house and they prepare something for you, so that things like this don't happen. A woman in Australia called, and let's see if I can get, a woman in Australia called Erin Patterson recently prepared a lunch for her in-laws and her in-laws' relatives. And I think she was going through a separation from her husband or her partner. The woman in question is a woman who lives in Victoria, in the state of Victoria, and it's in a small town just outside of Melbourne. Basically, she served them a meal which contained these dithcap mushrooms, which, some mushrooms are fine to eat, some mushrooms have to be cooked, and some mushrooms are not okay to eat. And these mushrooms were not okay to eat. And she served her in-laws after preparing this meal. And her in-laws were, the woman in question is called Erin Patterson. Her in-laws are called, okay, so she prepared the meal at her home in a rural town outside of Melbourne on 29th of July for her former parents-in-law, Don and Gail Patterson, Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson, and Heather's husband Ian Wilkinson. Now, the people that she prepared the meal for are in their 60s and 70s, and two of them have perished after eating this meal, and the other two are in hospital. So her story about preparing this meal for her in-laws has changed, and apparently she claimed that she had to go and get checked after she ate the meal as well. But funnily enough, she's fine. She's absolutely fine after eating this meal and preparing this meal. But the other people that she prepared the meal for are not fine. So I won't be going to anyone's house again to have lunch unless it's my mum's house, or, I won't be eating any mushrooms ever again. This has just put me off of eating any type of mushroom. I was never a fan of mushrooms in the first place. But this is just solidified. I think shiitake mushrooms are wonderful, but generally speaking, I'm not a fan of fungi. So I won't be going to anyone's house ever again especially somebody that maybe not be a fan of mine. I won't be going to someone's house to have lunch ever again, and I won't be eating mushrooms ever again. Let this be a lesson to all of us. If something is not meant to be eaten or has to be cooked, maybe we should rethink eating it. There's a dish in Jamaica called ackee and saltfish, and it's a very popular dish. It's considered another national dish along with jerk. Everyone knows about jerk. It's very popular. It's worldwide popular. Jerk chicken. Everyone knows about that. Jerk started with pork And that's my favorite type of jerk. I prefer jerk pork to jerk chicken, but jerk chicken is well renowned. But there's another dish that we have called ackee and sawfish, and the ackee tree or the ackee fruit, unless you cook it, it's not okay to eat raw. And if you eat it raw, the same kind of thing can happen. You can perish from eating it raw. Um, so this has made me rethink eating at anybody's house that I don't know or don't trust for lunch. And definitely I won't be eating any mushrooms again. But there are so many fantastic cases in Australia. There are so many good cases. This is not the first Australian case that I've talked about on my channel. There's another case with a woman called Melissa Caddick that I've covered on my channel as well. Not extensively, but I've covered it. There are so many cases that Dave could cover in Australia, but he doesn't cover those cases because he doesn't think that people will be interested enough. And that's fair enough. A lot of us tend to be more interested in American cases. But I'm keeping one eye on this case. Dr. Grande, who is very, very popular on YouTube, has discussed this case on YouTube. So maybe you'd like to go over there because he breaks down like a timeline of what happened with this woman called Erin Patterson, who lives in Victoria. And I think it's where she lives is a small town about 2 hours outside of Melbourne. You know, the famous cities in Australia, the most well-known cities are Sydney and Melbourne. Brisbane is also the third one. But, you know, this has just made me rethink eating mushrooms or even going to somebody's house for lunch ever again. Now, this case is still a developing case and, you know, it's been investigated. And so, you know, I don't know exactly what this woman's agenda was, Erin Patterson. However, to me, it is a bit fishy. And I've been eating a lot of fish this summer. And I just want to say something. Food prices, they have gone up by 130% in England. I don't know about everywhere else, but I know everywhere else is feeling it when it comes to food prices. I don't know how people are coping when it comes to paying and buying food when they've got, you know, multiple children to feed. Those people I really feel for, particularly the ones that are actually going out there to work hard, but are still finding it, you know, to work hard for their families, but are still finding it challenging to feed their families. I eat, you know, very well, and I mix, you know, Star Mama said something about me to Miss Mensa a few months ago that I only eat expensive food. That's what Star Mama said, that, you know, she only cooks expensive food. That's not true. I eat, you know, I buy quality, and sometimes you have to sacrifice quality and quick cooking for something cheaper. You know, more expensive meat, like for example, steak or lamb chops, or you know, a bit of venison. They don't take as long to cook as a tougher cut that takes longer to cook in a stew pot. But not everything that I eat is expensive by any stretch of the imagination. And it just so happens that I've got a good butcher and a generous butcher. You know, I have to watch what I spend on food myself. And, you know, there are some times when I get to, you know, I do my shopping, and, you know, the type of things that I buy are, you know, I mix vintage with new contemporary stuff, and I mix old and new, classic and contemporary. That's my style. You know, some of the things in my shopping lists are chickpeas, sea bass, crisps, what's it, chocolate. I like to have chocolate snacks, salmon, chicken. You know, chicken is the one thing that's still relatively affordable, but even chicken has gone up in price. I, you know, buy eggs, milk, flour, and I use a variety of different flours in my cooking. You know, the two main flours that I use are cake flour, sponge flour. So when I'm making cakes, I have a nice spongy, fluffy cake. And the other flour that I use is bread flour to make bread and flatbreads and stuff like that. The other thing that I always have, is pasta. And pasta is always cheap. You know, pasta is the one thing that you can always count on. And pasta is so versatile. You can make pasta with lobster. You can make pasta with broccoli. You can make pasta with lentils. I mean, pasta is the one thing that I always have and advise everybody to always have in their pantry, because pasta is always reliable. It's cheap and reliable. Another thing that I buy is yogurt. I eat copious amounts of yogurt. I am a big fan of yogurt. I'm a yogurt eater. I also, I make my own vanilla. So I buy the vanilla pods, and I make my own vanilla. So I don't have to, I've got basically a big bottle of vanilla that would cost lots of money if it was to be sold at a store. But I find that better to have a big expensive bottle of vanilla than having to go to the supermarket to buy the cheap ones, every 2 weeks, because they're going to run out. I find sometimes you might invest in something that's expensive, but it's going to actually work out cheaper for you in the long run if you can get more out of it. If I buy a whole chicken, for example, I'll make sure that I keep the carcass. I'll keep the spine of the chicken. I'll keep the bones of the chicken so I can make stock for a soup later on. It's not just what you spend or how much money you spend. It's how you utilize what you buy to get the maximum benefit from it. But I have to say, every time I stop my shopping cart, when I get to the shopping line and there's a shortage, there's a massive shortage of supermarket workers where I am. And every time I get to the end, of my shopping and I go to the shopping till, I always am thinking, oh my God, what is this going to come up to? Because the food prices are just really, really gone up. While we're on the subject, and I will just say this, for people who have both kids and pets to feed, really feel for you if you are in a place where the food prices are really high. I might as well, talk about this before I close here, and that is about gut health. I had no idea, and it's quite interesting. Since I've been on YouTube and had been a creator myself, I had no idea how many people have gut health issues. I cannot tell you how many people have come to me and said, I can't eat this food or that food because I have gut issues. And my advice for that, and everybody is different, depending on your background, what age you are, what ethnicity you are, all of these different things affect, what foods are best for our bodies and our lifestyles and everything like that. What gender you are, what part of the world you live in, whether it's summer or winter, all of these things have different impacts on each individual. But what I do and what I eat on a daily basis, like I said, I love yogurt. Today, I started with yogurt and fruit and nuts. That gives me the nutrition that my body needs, but it also is very good for my gut health. Yogurt is good for my gut health. 50% of the reason why I eat yogurt is for my good gut health. And our guts are a big part of our immune system. So if we can maintain good gut health, then we're less susceptible to all kinds of things that can, cause us not to be well. So I eat yogurt first thing in the morning with fruits, and I eat nuts to get my nutrition and to take care of my gut health. Also, I believe there are certain times of the day when we need to be eating, but there are also certain times of the day that we need to be digesting. So I only eat within a certain window of time. I don't eat after 7 o'clock, generally speaking. Sometimes I do, if I have a craving and I'm just having a one-off night or there's some kind of celebration. But I generally don't eat after 7 o'clock. I have a closing window for eating for the day, because I believe that, you cannot continually feed and stuff your body. There has to be a time when your body is actually digesting, and you need to give your body time to digest. So I don't eat after 7 o'clock. I generally stop eating after 5. So that's another thing. Eat good quality yogurt. Greek yogurt is wonderful, or find a yogurt brand that is good for you, good for your stomach, and that you can eat on a daily basis. I know that yogurt can be also expensive. I know that. And another yogurt that I like to eat is Activia. with granola. I love that, the vanilla one. I really, really love that one, but that one is quite expensive especially if you want to eat that every day. Um, I mean, I know that there are vegetarians and vegans, and that's fine. That's also good for you, but also you might be lacking in protein if you are vegan or vegetarian. I like to eat fish in the summer because it's quick to eat, it's delicious, and it's very nutritious for your body. Although there are setbacks with fish as well, which I'll talk about another time. Um, Fish is better for your body to digest than steak. So I really do love to eat fish in the summer. Um, but I had no idea that so many people and some people have come to me and said so, because I've shown them pictures of food and stuff like that, and demonstrations of the food that I eat and food hacks and stuff like that, and said they have gut issues. And I had no idea that this was such a widespread um, issue. Eat a lot of yogurt, eat good food, eat fish, eat food that's easy to digest for the body, and don't eat after a certain time. That's my advice, but everyone is different.